Hey everybody, welcome back to Mike's Wooden Things and Stuff. Once in a while, I ask my higher level patrons, my supporters over on my Patreon page, uh, shut up, dog. I'm doing stuff. Uh, for topics that they'd like to see covered here on the channel. And in this edition, is that dog okay? Yeah, it's okay. Another good start. Another good start. Traffic. We got dogs. So in this edition of Patreon Asks, we are going to talk saw blades. My new friend Amy Gersh, who actually found my Patreon page before I'd even announced that it existed and put herself in at the highest level that was available at the time. So I very much appreciate that, Amy. She wants to know what saw blades I use in my machines for what purpose, and I'm going to go through table saw blades, bandsaw blades, and jigsaw blades today. Just show you what I use and why I use it when, and it'll just be sort of a relatively quick overview of the saws. Not the saws. I mean, we could talk about the saws too, but we'll talk about the blades specifically. So I've taken my table saw blade out that I use most of the time because it needs a clean anyway. And I've got them here on the bench. Let's show you what's what and where and why and how. Well, maybe not how. Maybe not. What did I say? What, why, how? What? Doesn't matter. Let's get into the saw blades. Okay, so let's start at the start. This is the saw blade that just came off my table saw today. It lives in my table saw, basically. This is my Freud Industrial 30 TPI thin kerf glue line rip blade. I have not been able to convince myself to pony up for like a Forest Woodworker 2 or anything like that. It might happen one day, but these are generally sort of like the mid-range saw blade, which I think is a good place for most people to be. So we're looking at $60-ish Canadian, $70-ish Canadian for most of these. These two came in a 2-pack that I got on sale. We'll talk about those in a minute, but I use sort of mid-range. I use the Freud Industrial. These are not the Diablo Home Depot saw blades. This is Freud's higher end, I guess, blade. It's a TCG grind, so it's got a flat top and then a sort of a tombstone on alternating teeth. Is a 3/32 inch kerf, and it, like I said, it lives in my table saw. I have a rigid R4512 table saw, which is a 1 3/4 horsepower. So it's generally considered to be an underpowered saw, which is why I went with the thin kerf for this one, just to see if there was a difference. But really 1 3/4 horsepower for the stuff I do. I don't think it's necessary to go down to a thin kerf, but I spent the money on it, and it is a phenomenal performer in my table saw. I got this guy today. Literally just got dropped off by Amazon, and it is the Freud Industrial heavy duty rip blade, 24 tooth, full kerf, flat top grind. And I ordered this because I want a flatter top when I'm doing like spline cuts and things like that, and a full kerf flat top grind blade is what I was looking for. This might become my new go-to blade, and I'll keep this one for when I'm ripping thicker, heavier material, like 8/4 hard maple or something like this. I think this is probably going to end up being my workhorse now that it has arrived. But we'll have to iron that out later. This is gonna go in my saw today. I'm gonna clean this one up and put it back on the side of the saw, and I'm gonna try this one out for a little bit, because I don't think my saw is gonna have a problem running that blade, and it's a better rip blade. Most of the time, if you're doing cross cuts, you want to have more teeth on your saw blade, but I generally don't bother. I guess would be the way. I'm lazy, I guess, is the only way to say it. But because most of the time if I'm doing a crosscut, I'm going to be cleaning up that face with a hand plane afterwards, or it's sanding at the very least. So a little bit of tear out on the backside of a crosscut is really not the end of the world for me most of the time. If I do want a nice, crisp, clean crosscut blade, that's why I bought this set of blades, because it was on sale and it had a 60 tooth. So more teeth equals cleaner cut in theory, in general. So this is my blade that I use when I'm doing crosscuts that I want to have nice and clean backside on. And this one generally filled the role of this one before I got this, so this probably isn't going to get used very often. This was what I used when I wanted a full curve cut. This one does deflect a little bit on thicker, heavier material, which is why I would sometimes go to this if I was ripping like 8/4, which I don't do very often. And then the last, but well, certainly least, I was going to say last but not least, but this is certainly the least, is my 200 tooth Mastercraft saw blade that I got way back when I started. It came in a 2-pack as well with a rip blade. And I got this to do crosscuts. It's almost useless. I might have put this on my saw twice since I got the rigid saw 2 years ago. I basically only use this if I want a nice clean cut on sheet good and a thin sheet good. So like if I'm cutting 1/4 inch plywood, maybe I'll go to this if I want a nice crisp clean cut, but it's so slow. You have to push the wood through so slowly. I had this on my miter saw for a little bit, thinking that it might be okay there, and 200 is too many. Let's just say that. So those are my table saw blades and why I use them when I use them. This one is probably going to get relegated back with this one on the back of the pile, and then it'll go, this one's going in the saw, so this one will sit on top of this one, on top of this one, mounted on the side of my saw like that, because that is the order in which I will probably be needing them. Let's go on to the bandsaw. Let's go over to the bandsaw and we'll look at the blades I use over there. Okay, so over at my bandsaw, this is the Rikon 10 326 14-inch bandsaw. It takes 111-inch blades. Currently, I have a 1/4 inch 6 TPI, 6? Yes. 1/4 inch 6 TPI blade on there because I was doing some radiuses that were a little bit too tight. Most of the time, I use a 1/2 inch 3 TPI hook tooth blade on this saw. This is like my glue line rip blade over there. It basically lives on my saw. The only time I switch this out for the 1/4 inch is if I'm doing radiuses that this thing can't handle. But even then, most of the time I'll just cut some relief cuts and do them with this anyway, because changing bandsaw blades sucks. 3 TPI 1/2 inch blade is my go-to standard. 111 inch. I get them from Lee Valley generally because they sold me the saw and they sell the blades that fit the saw. I probably will end up going and making an order through Carter. I'm interested in trying Carter's bandsaw blades. But so far so good with the ones that Lee Valley sells, and I don't have any problems with them. This is the 5/8, I want to say 5 TPI blade that came on the saw. I don't know why I keep this. This is garbage. I should throw it out. But I have trouble throwing things out. See, I have 2 1/2 inch 3 TPI bandsaw blades. One of them is super dull. The other one is not as dull as that one, but it still probably needs replacing. I do have a new one that I probably will put on the saw, and these ones will go back on the wall for some reason. Not sure why I keep these, but maybe one day I'll have something that I'm not sure if it has metal in it and I'll just I'll throw one of these on instead to find out. I don't know. Anyway, 1/2 inch 3 TPI, 1/4 inch 6 TPI are the only two blades that I run in this saw. Let's look at Jigsaw Blades real quick as the last, and then I'll bid you adieu, as they say. They don't say that. Nobody says that. Right, not a lot of complications over here with the Jigsaw Blades either. I have a Bosch Jigsaw. Actually, I had the Bosch Jigsaw won my favorite tool for right now award recently, where I talk about the uses of the Jigsaw and what I use it for. So I'll leave a link to that up in one of these corners. But the blades I use, basically I use two blades. These ones I use almost all the time. This is a Bosch, it's just called Speed. I don't know what it is, 6 teeth per inch. Yeah, and basically most of the time I'm using my Jigsaw to break down rough stock. I'm breaking it down oversized anyway, so I don't really care about the quality of cut. I just want to get an approximate part out of the board. So the Speed 6 TPI blade is what I use almost all the time. If I'm cutting something that I would like to be a little bit cleaner for some reason, I'm almost never trying to make an exact cut with a Jigsaw, so it's very, very infrequent that I use these ones. They are called Clean. The Clean for wood Bosch Jigsaw blade. It's a 10 teeth per inch, and yeah, I don't use those very often at all. Most of the time I just go with the 6 TPI T. It's got the little T thing that hooks into most modern jigsaws, and these aren't too bad for price. I think maybe $11 a pack for 5, so $2 and a bit each. I use them for a little bit, and then when I start feeling like I'm cutting, like I have to push a little harder than I used to, I'll just switch it out for a new one, throw that out. Yeah, so Speed and Clean are my two Jigsaw blade options, and that pretty much covers it, I think. If there's anything else you guys want to know about in terms of stuff I use in the shop, you can leave comments down below. I do read and respond to all of my comments. Almost all of my comments anyway. And that's it. We'll see you next time. Head over to Patreon and sign up to help me out, and sometimes you might get a chance to chime in on what you want to see in a video as well. That's it for this one. Bye for now. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. See you next time.